Hi, welcome to my Diastasis-Safe Pilates class. I've had a lot of requests to get this online so that those of you with an abdominal separation have some exercises that you can do and be confident that they're not going to make your diastasis recti any worse. But there is one rule of thumb I need you to follow as you go through the class, and that is that you need to be able to engage your core and keep your abdominals held in while you're doing an exercise. If you can't and you feel any pressure into the abdominal wall, see any tenting or bulging, then you definitely want to modify. And I'll be giving cues for those modifications as we go through the class. If you want any additional information about myself, Brooke Lewis, or about diastasis recti rehabilitation in general, then please go to pidr.net. So let's get started. We're going to start in a seated position, and any position that's comfortable for you is great, as long as you're sitting with a neutral pelvis and a neutral spine. So we want to be able to sit up tall with that natural little curve in the lower back with the rib cage dropped. You can have your hands either on the front of your belly or on the sides of your torso, so that as you inhale, you can feel your torso expanding into your hands. And as you exhale, you feel the torso drawing away. We're going to take a few breaths like that to get started. And this in and of itself is a really great transverse abdominis strengthening exercise. So don't skip these thinking that they're going to be just too easy and just part of the warm-up. This is a really great way to tone the abdominals. On your next breath, we're going to hold that exhale, hold the core tight, hold the abs in, keep breathing from the chest, and we're going to do small little pulses from here. Exhale to tighten the abs, inhale, little release. It's like you're moving your belly button from the front of your spine to the back of your spine, and on that inhale, just releasing to the front again. Let's do one more. Take a deep breath, fill up those lungs, relax the abdominal muscles, relax the shoulders, and we're going to be doing some exercises where we're picking our head up off the ground, so let's make sure that neck is warmed up. Drop your chin and roll your chin from shoulder to shoulder. Bring your head back center, and we're just going to look over each shoulder, moving with your breath as you go. And still feel that same in and out, that same expansion and contraction through your core. So even as we're stretching and warming up, we're using our core. And then finally, in our seated warm-up, we're going to take those arms overhead. As you exhale, bring the arms straight in front of you. Keep the rib cage down as you lift the arms. And then inhale to release. We're going to be doing some work with our hands overhead a little bit later on. And it's important that we work to keep that rib cage dropped. We don't want to flare the ribs because that's going to create more stretch through that connective tissue that's already damaged with that abdominal separation. Let's do two more. Last one, big reach to the sky, keep those ribs dropped. And we're going to move to a back lying position. So rather than leaning back, because that's really stressful on that connective tissue, we're going to go to a side lying position and then roll onto our back. So you're going to bring your head down to your bottom arm and then just roll onto your back here. And we're going to start with some exercises that are pretty gentle, and then we're going to work our way up in difficulty. So you can always go back to the more simple variation if that's working better for you, meaning you're able to keep that core engaged as you perform the exercise. I always like to keep one or both hands onto my belly so that I can feel if there's any force pushing into my hands, which is my key to know that that exercise is a little bit too much for me. We're going to always start by engaging the core. So you're going to take an inhale and expand into your hands, and then exhale and hug in. Feel the belly move away from the hands. You're going to keep the core engaged, keep that little space between your lower back and the floor rather than flattening into the ground. Staying neutral. And we're going to start with some heel slides. So we're just going to extend one leg out on the inhale and then exhale to drag it back in. Stay on that same leg, extend out on the inhale and exhale to pull in. What we're really doing here is just creating good, healthy movement patterns. So you're doing the work of the exercise, dragging that heel in towards you as you're exhaling and engaging the core. So it's that core that's really doing the work. Let's switch sides. Take the opposite leg out and contract as you come back in on that exhale. Now, if you're more advanced and you have more core strength here, then you can try doing this with the opposite leg up off the floor. That's going to add a lot more challenge, so you gotta make sure you're still able to hold that core in tight. Let's do one more here. Take a breath, expand into your hands, and then exhale to hug that core in again. Moving on to our march, you're going to bring one foot up off the floor, stack the knee over your hip, and then release toes almost to the ground. Exhale to move away from gravity. That's our hardest part. And then inhale to tap the toes back down. If you wanted to make this more challenging, you could either straighten out that opposite leg, or even do this with both legs up off the floor. Keep in mind, both legs off the ground is very challenging, so that's something you're going to want time to work up towards and may not be able to do while you have a diastasis recti. Take a breath before we go to the other side, that rest breath. Fill up the lungs. Exhale, tighten the core. Always starting from that engaged core before you get started, so that you're creating stability in that neutral pelvis, neutral spine. So let's do the other leg. Exhale to lift. Inhale to lower. And again, you can add those progressions as you feel you're ready. Straightening out the opposite leg, or possibly bringing it up off the ground altogether. If you have your feet off the ground, you're going to release one at a time while your core is still engaged, and then take that rest breath. Great. Tighten that core again, moving on to our single leg lift. And extend out one leg. Exhale to lift the leg off the ground to about the height of that opposite knee. Again, creating those good movement patterns, feeling the belly drop away from your hands as you exhale that leg up. Let's switch sides. If you feel a lot of movement in the pelvis, then you know that you're needing to tighten that core a little bit more for more stability, or maybe make that range of motion a little smaller. Or you can always go back to the march, bent legs. Rest there, take a breath. And tighten the core as you're set up for the next exercise, which is going to be our leg circles. Extend one leg out. You're going to really reach those toes away from you, feeling all the muscles in your leg tighten up around the bones. And we're going to extend out the opposite leg as well. Taking your circles, like you're drawing circles across the room. Exhale as you lift the leg. Inhale as it comes back down. in a reverse direction. This is another one where we're really looking for that stability through the pelvis. If you feel like your hips are rocking side to side, then you want to make that circle smaller. And let's do the other leg. Take a rest breath, hug the core in, lift that leg, reach it away from you, and then circle. Exhale to lift, inhale around. Reverse direction. Putting some pressure into that resting leg as it's pushing into the ground for more stability. And rest that leg down. You can shake them out. Relax those quads. Got some extra quad work in there too. And then we're going to take it all the way to a sideline position. So you're going to hug in and roll to your side. And then just rest the head down onto your bottom arm here. Always starting by engaging the core. And we're going to start with some clams. That top hand here is to balance you. But of course you're also balanced with these bent knees. So if you feel good and balanced, you can bring a hand to your belly to again feel that backward movement. Feel the core engage. I'm going to lift the knee on the exhale. Lower on the inhale. Keep the toes connected, lift the knee. Feeling the work in through the backside here. Two more. You're only lifting that knee as high as you can feel the muscles engage, not so high that the whole pelvis is rolling back. And rest there. We're going to straighten out the legs. And here we'll want that top hand a little bit more for stability, now that those legs are straight. And of course we get stability by engaging the core. So tighten up through here, still breathing from the chest. We're going to start with a single leg lift. Lift that top leg up on the exhale. Lower on the inhale. Again, reaching through the toes, strong through the leg. And if you want that extra challenge, you can bring your hand to your belly. Last two. Take a rest breath. Tighten the core. And we're going to do some heel taps here. We're going to cross the top leg in front and in back of the bottom ankle. So that top hand will be really helpful to keep you from rolling front or back. You're going to lift that top leg, flex the foot, reach through your heel. We're going to tap in front and then in back of that bottom ankle. Keep both legs long here, reaching through that bottom leg as well. Last one, tapping in front and in back. And then rest that leg on top. Take your rest breath and soften your knees and relax through the hips here. Exhale to tighten and lengthen back up. And our double leg lift here. You're going to peel both legs up off the floor on the exhale. Lower them down on the inhale. We're going to keep this movement nice and smooth. So rather than jerking the legs up with each exhale, we want them to be going the same speed on the way up as on the way down. Nice and controlled. Last two. And now let's work through the inner thighs. So we're going to bring that top leg in front, flex the bottom foot, and do our leg lifts with the bottom leg. Still exhaling to lift, still feeling the belly move away from the hand as you exhale. Keeping the shoulders stacked and the hips stacked the whole time. Last one. And release, bringing that top leg on top of the bottom. We're going to slightly bend those knees. Always make sure your core is engaged as you come into a different position. So we're engaging the core as we lift up just onto the forearm here. And we're going to lift the bottom ribs going into our side plank pulses. So I want you to push the knees back in line with the shoulders. Keep those bottom ribs lifted so you're not sunk into that bottom shoulder. And extend long through the neck. And again, starting with that core already engaged, we're going to lift the hips off the ground and then lower. Lift on the exhale, lower on the inhale. You can make this more challenging by taking that top leg up and out. And then release all the way back down to the ground. And we're going to push up and over to the other side from here. So again, engage the core. Use your arm to push you up and over. And we're just going to transition so our head's on the other end of the mat. And we're going to repeat all of that again. So extend your head down onto your bottom arm. Bend the knees. Knees are a little bit in front of your waist here. Stack the shoulders and the hips. And we're going to exhale to lift the knee, keep the toes connected. You can always have that hand here to feel, making sure that backward movement is happening. The core is engaging as the catalyst to moving that knee up. Two more. Rest the leg down, stretch it out. So now you're in one straight line, stacked and in neutral alignment. Engage through the core, and we'll start with those single leg lifts. Exhale to lift the leg up. Inhale to squeeze it down. Reaching long through the toes, both on the way up and on the way down. And this really is about control rather than how high you can get your leg. If I were to throw my leg up as high as I could, I'd be throwing myself out of alignment, feeling that bottom rib cage pressing down into the floor and flattening out. Rest there, moving to our heel taps. We're going to lift that leg, rotate the knee towards the sky, flex the foot, and then tap in front and in back of that bottom ankle. Still lifting on the exhale, tap on the inhale. Reaching long through the heel on this one. Just follow that breath for two more. Last one, front and back. And stack the legs. Again, you can soften the knees during that rest breath. Relax through the hips and the glutes. And then we're going to extend back out again for our double leg lift. Starting with that core tight, we're going to exhale both legs up off the ground and inhale to lower. Watch that you're not rolling forward or backward as you lift those legs. And feeling the work not only in the hips, but up into those obliques in the top side of your body as you lift. Last one here. Rest it down and into our inner thigh work, adductor lifts. Top leg in front of you, get that nice stretch through the hip. Flex the bottom foot and exhale, reach through the heel as you lift. With that top leg supporting you and balancing you, you can bring the hand to your belly again. Hopefully feeling a little work through those inner thigh muscles. Let's do two more. Rest it down, extend the legs out. Keep that core engaged as you bend the knees, press up onto your forearm for those side plank pulses. Knees push back in line with your shoulders. Lift the rib cage, engage the core, And then we're lifting up on the exhale, down on the inhale. And if you want that extra challenge, extend the top leg. Few more here, feeling that work in the underside of the body. Last one. And we're going to lower it down. This time we're going to press ourselves up to a seated position to get a little side bend stretch. So we're going to reach it up and over, take a few breaths here. Let that inhale deepen the stretch as you expand. And let's do it to the other side. So switch your feet over. Now reach up towards the ceiling and then over. Take one more big breath here. And then back to an upright position so that we can get onto our back again. So from that side lying position, we're going to roll onto our back, same as before. Lay your head down, roll onto your back. And before we were using the weight of our legs to challenge our core. Now we're going to use the weight of our head and our shoulders to challenge the core from top to bottom. So starting in that neutral position again, little curve in your lower back, hips are level. Exhale to tighten the core. Always keep breathing, but keep the abdominals held in. And we're going to start with a head lift. So you're going to bring your hands behind your head. And remember, this is where we wanted to make sure we could keep the ribs down. So think of your sternum pulling towards your belly button. Open those elbows up to the side. And on an exhale, we're just going to lift the head and inch off the ground. And release on the inhale. You want to make sure that as you lift the head, you're feeling the core engage. You can always keep a hand there to make sure there's no upward pressure into your hand. Feel that downward movement, belly away from the hand as you lift the head. Really common here, especially with a diastasis, that you might feel some pushing up into your hand, which is really common with traditional crunches. So if you're feeling that, just make the movement smaller. Even if you're just acting as though you're going to lift the head, but it doesn't really come up off the floor. Feel that corset tightening around you with each exhale. We're going to do a few more. I want you to feel like you're lengthening through the crown of your head. So this isn't a rounding motion yet. We'll do that next. The difference between this and crunches is really about the force and the pressure. Keeping that pressure out of the abdominal wall. All right, good endurance. We're going to rest there. Take a big breath in, fill up those lungs. And exhale it out. We're going to move on to our half roll up. So here we are going to really work the articulation of the spine. And again, you can always have one hand on the belly. A good idea to make sure that there's no pressure, because that's what ruins it. We're going to exhale, tuck the chin, roll the ribs towards the floor, and scoop out the belly. Inhale to release back down. So on this one, instead of lengthening through the spine like we did with that little tiny head lift, now we're working that roll, taking those ribs down and under you, scooping out the belly. And you're just going to go as high as you can without any pressure into your hand. Of course, if you wanted to make this more challenging, you could lift one leg up off the ground and eventually two legs up off the ground. Let's do 3 more here. Last one. If your legs are lifted, one drops down to the floor at a time with the core engaged, and then take that rest breath. Excellent. We're going to roll all the way onto your belly here to get some back extensions in to make this a really well-rounded core workout. And hopefully you're feeling those legs and thighs. Bring your arms down by your sides. As you're doing this, you're going to have your nose pointed to the ground. Now, a little bit different than you may have done these in the past, I want you to lift on the exhale rather than the inhale, because I want the core to engage to do the work rather than inflating the belly to lift your chest. So you're going to start with the core engaged, belly button to your spine, corset wrapped around you, and on the exhale, lift the chest. Now bring those arms up off the ground with you. Reach the fingers towards the toes. If you're feeling the need for more of that lower body work, you can take the legs with you. And release down to the ground. Now the reason those are safe, even though there's some back extension in there, is that we're only lifting a little bit. So we're just lifting enough to keep the sternum on the ground rather than going into a big back extension. So again, that's not one you want to do with a great range of motion. Just lifting the chest and the shoulders off the ground as you lengthen through the crown of the head. Let's go ahead and roll ourselves to the front, avoiding that all fours position because it brings extra pressure into that connective tissue you're trying to heal. So roll to the side rather than pressing yourself up into all fours. Go ahead and lift yourself back to a seated position here. These are exercises that you can go through and do a second round of if you want a little bit longer of a workout, or leave it at that for today and revisit another time. If you have any questions at all or any comments, please leave it in the comment section below, and I'd be happy to communicate with you that way. Otherwise, thanks so much. We'll see you again soon.